The air in parts and services was moist and reeked of chlorine and stale old motor oil. Today on the operation table was a new and unique animatronic. Above the machine stood an overweight man with tools and a cigarette in his mouth, as he was twisting screws and adjusting cables. Carefully shoved them into thick plastic tubes to isolate them better. The man's name was Kevin. He was the diligent on-duty engineer of the new Fazbear Megaplex. Unlike the Pizzaplex before, the Megaplex was different to what was now simply called the Ruin. While still selling food to hundreds of people, it was cut into sections. The main restaurant area in the atrium and lobby, and a vast indoor amusement park, the biggest in America too. It was a hell of a ride, starting from the small diner all those decades ago. Especially after Fazbear's previous endeavor, the Pizzaplex, having crumbled so terribly. This was Fazbear Entertainment's biggest location yet, and they were aiming to create an even bigger outer amusement park sometime down the line somewhere else, but that was still years off. The Megaplex still needed to bring in all those delicious dollars. A recent addition to the Megaplex was Stargazer Lane, a space-themed indoor water park. With its own entrance, own rules and, of course, own animatronic. It was an additional building that had been added to the eastern side of it. It contained a splash mountain, multiple adventure pools, a ride with water guns, a wave pool, and of course a beautiful lazy river. And the pride of the entire construction, the Whistling Freddy, the longest water slide ever built. The attraction was only days before opening, and finally the modifications from FNAF had arrived to allow a certain endoskeleton for a certain animatronic to be fully submerged in water without damaging or fear of electrocution. Though Kevin would have preferred to receive an instructional video on how to mod the machine, rather than a simple text-based manual that didn't even have enough pictures. Thankfully, the man had been working with FNAF machines for 20 years now, so he knew the tricks and unintentional wordplays the robot company used. Ugh, this corporate nice-speak and oversimplifying of intricate electronics. This was borderline negligent. If anyone else would work on this thing would probably break immediately. Ah well, that's what he was paid for. God damn it, he'd do it. Doing the best he can, that is. The animatronic he was working on was a regular daycare attendant model. Flat head, mask included. Ironically, the daycare attendant was one of the cheapest animatronic endoskeletons that could be brought from FNAF, meaning the thing was very simple built. And there were so many terrible design choices that made the man sweat with fear. He needed to work as precise as possible. After all, the thing was already super twitchy and only holding together with fave, grease and a lot of spit. "Hey, Kevin." The man jumped, almost kicking over his tools. Sorry. The person this sweet voice belonged to was you. You were an assistant day guard, which was the lowest possible rank for a security guard. Essentially, glorified coffee delivery person who just barely qualified to carry pepper spray. "It's fine. It's fine," grunted Kevin. He turned around to look at you, immediately noticing the pudding pretzel and coffee you were holding on a tablet for him. "Oh, kiddo," he sighed as he accepted your offer. "You don't have to feed me." though he already bit into the pastry, covering his entire mouth with powdered sugar. Brian said if I don't regularly feed you, you will work yourself to death. Kevin took a sip of his coffee. Brian definitely did not say exactly these words. Just tell Brian to shut the fuck up. You blinked. I don't think I should. Brian was your supervisor and you would not risk your job. Kevin chuckled. You're new. Eventually you'll say it yourself. And you realize he doesn't punish it. You furrowed your brows. And why would I say it? Just wait until that pothead is trying to show off his super social media worthy smoking tricks. Trust me, they suck. Right. Anyways, kiddo, what do you think? Kevin took a step aside. The endoskeleton looked interesting. There were thick black tubes covering all of the cables. Most of the electronics were covered by black plastic cases. The little you understood about machines was water equals bad, so this looked fine? Kevin leaned on the table as he began to explain, but after 5 minutes of him giving you a lecture, you realized that this was going to take an hour at least. I really have to go back. This is my first 24-hour shift, and I don't want to make any mistakes. Kevin stopped, giving you a look, before giving you a devious smile. I see. You gulped. You had heard from Brian that Kevin liked to make little pranks. They never were dangerous, but it made you weary of anything you said around him. Well, in that case... He typed something up on his maintenance tablet, and after hitting send, you got a notification. Bring the animatronic into Stargazer Lane at 3 a.m. That's when his battery is full. Your right eye twitched. You already screwed up, didn't you? Sure, Kevin. 24-hour shifts. Emily, one of the girls working at the entrance, said that those were hazing rituals by the guards, as legally there were no 24-hour workdays for guards. It was to see who had the balls to stand up to the boss, in your case, Brian, and who was a yes man and just did it. And of course, who was a quitter. Judging by the sad smile she gave you after she packed her things to go home, you definitely were a yes man, as you were going to do these 24-hour shifts. Her parting words were quite crass as well. Just don't suck Brian's dick. The guy's got his ego inflated enough as it is. And so your night shift began. You did everything by the book. Sent the robots to their green rooms, made sure the scrapped Eclipse animatronic in Memorial Lane was getting charged. The poor machine survived the Pizzaplex in a super sorry state, and was now displayed in Memorial Lane as its main attraction. But he was still functional, and he was super sweet. He called you Superstar. Well, he called everyone that, as he wasn't given access to the Megaplex's servers. And with the exception of Brian, Kevin, and 2 other guards, he recognized no one else as an employee. Thankfully, his unbelievably kind nature, as the only truly functional Eclipse animatronic, made him very docile and accommodating. You had finished everything on your work checklist, leaving only the additional duty you had taken upon yourself. The 3 a.m. visit to Parts and Services to get Glamrock Moon to Stargazer Lane. Cautiously, you entered Parts and Services. It was the first time you were here alone and seeing all those spread out parts. Inactive skeletons and other dangerous looking tools and knickknacks made you feel really out of place. You stepped over a couple of boxes, and there he was. The animatronic. Inactive, lying on the operation table, inside the protective dome. Her eyes widened. Yes, he certainly looked like the daycare attendant. Just a little more bulkier. He didn't have those silly balloon pants. The seams of his shell were all covered by either navy blue or red rubber. But most uniquely about him was the overall look. His left side was painted to emulate his sun half, with the orange-red coloring. And even sunspikes shot out of his head there. While his right looked like moon. It was white, blue, and purple, with his nightcap attached to the side of his head. His face was fascinating as well. It wasn't a static mask, but rather silicone. Curiously, you touched it. It felt almost like skin. Well, maybe it was a little too firm, but it certainly was a great attempt. His mouth was quite wide, and you blushed as you curiously put your finger in his mouth. But that was a mistake, as the moment your fingers pushed past his lips, the robot awoke and jolted up. Scared, you jumped back. Confused, Moon looked around. His moon eye was red, the sun eye yellow.
"What are you doing, Miss Guard?"
He scolded you. He rubbed over his lips, confused.
"I'm sorry,"
you shouted.
"I thought you were offline." I was on standby."
The animatronic looked down at his hands. They were thicker than you expected. Then he looked down at himself.
"I look like a hunk."
Hunk? The robot shrugged.
"I assume these upgrades required me to get bigger. But this is acceptable. I have been programmed with the knowledge of my new location, and the knowledge that there are in fact 3 different daycare attendants in this franchise right now. Correct?"
You nodded. Though you are considered a glam rock. His spikes wiggled excitedly in a very cute way.
"Oh, am I? Interesting. Does this mean I finally get to perform on stage too?"
You shrugged. Probably not. Up until today, I didn't even know you were going to be built, today. He placed a hand on his chest.
"Oh, my apologies then, employee. Let me introduce myself."
He stepped off the table and bowed before you.
"It appears that I am Glamrock Moon, at your service."
It was then that you noticed that his mouth actually moved. You could see the row of white teeth and a purple shine behind his lower jaw. Wait, did he have a tongue? Just out of curiosity, what can you do?
"Accessing employee manual subchapter modifications. I am constructed to withstand high pressure underwater as well as uncommonly high heat. This is because I am intended for solar use as well. There are over 55 massage techniques I have access to. I am classified to teach children below the age of 15 how to swim, and can give away Fazbear swimming certificates for completing the Fazbear Beginner Swimmer Time Trial. Lastly, I am equipped with hypersensitive lips and a breathing apparatus to allow for up to 6 hours of CPR.
Wow. He was probably even more high-tech than Glamrock Freddy 2.0. And massage? Now that sounded interesting. Well, you can walk, talk. You say you're functional, so just let me escort you to your new home.
Of course, Miss Guard. Thank you very much.
Moon was close behind you as you made your way to the new building. You did walk past the daycare.
I want to scare him,
he commented, as his gaze was fully focused on the closed door to the daycare, which had its muffled music playing behind it. You snorted. I can't let you do that, unfortunately. After a short walk through the Eastern Arcade, you entered Stargazer Lane. The attraction was built to resemble space. The ceiling was kept as high as possible. It was covered in thousands of small and somewhat weak LED lights to create a starry sky atmosphere. In the middle of the large complex was a huge moon ornament suspended on the ceiling. It was the attraction's primary light source as well.
A bit dim,
he commented. Oh, I thought you'd like that.
I feel like it might be a liability. But yes, I prefer the dark.
Here it smelled of chlorine, though since no one peed in the pool yet, the smell was actually more pleasant rather than revolting. You hoped the ventilation, once actually on full blast, would prevent any terrible smells. Neo stopped at the changing rooms. Just go through there, and then you're at the pool area, and you're home, you said.
With your company, Miss Guard.
You shrugged. I don't have a swimsuit. The robot blinked. A small emoji resembling Kevin's face appeared on the lower right of his HUD, as he said something that he wasn't programmed to say.
Well, there's no one around.
You blushed hard. Wait, was he implying? Perplexed at what he just said, the robot blinked, though whatever tampered with his personality made him not act accordingly yet again.
Aren't you curious about my new home and the attractions within it?
I am, but... You scratched the back of your head. But the cameras weren't on yet, and you felt a little sticky after running around the stuffy megaplex all day. Maybe... Shivering, you stuttered. Okay. Before walking past him into the changing rooms. Meanwhile, the animatronic angrily opened up his messenger app, sending a text message to Kevin that something was wrong with his personality. 3 minutes passed until he finally got an answer. I'll delete that little program tomorrow. Have fun.
Wait, what the hell did that mean?
Minutes later, you stepped out of the shower. You decided to stay in your underwear at least. It might not be the best swimming attire, but it was better than skinny dipping. It felt a lot less, against the rules. Though you would definitely be fired for swimming in the pools, not only on your work time, but also while the attraction still wasn't open yet. Though his moon locked eyes with you, he puffed up his cheeks, and immediately covered your chest with your arms. What?
You look stunning.
Your face flushed. What? He took an embarrassed step, looking away. This was weird, having a robot hitting on you. Are you going to be acting like that when there are customers around too? You do realize they will be wearing similar stuff too, right? Like, they might think it's harassment? The robot's head shot towards you, his HUD glowing red as he attempted to tell you about the modification added to his brain, but instead of saying Kevin screwed up his thinking, he just said,
I highly doubt that. You're beautiful. I don't think there's anyone more beautiful than you.
You closed your eyes. Damn it, why did you like this so much? You inhaled and exhaled to calm your nerves, before finally stepping into the attraction with the robot close by. The pools look wonderful. They were only slightly heated, so quite cold actually. but their bottoms were luminescent, giving the water an otherworldly blue glow. Of course, because this place wasn't open yet, most of the attractions were turned off. And Moon advised you to not turn them on, as that would show up on the logs. But what did work was Whistling Freddy. After letting yourself be carried through the lazy river for a while, you had finally built up the courage to climb the stairs to the water slide. "It's enormous," you commented. Similar to the lazy river, the slide went around and through the entire attraction, with multiple windowed sections for customers to see and zip past, and users to see the outside zoom away from them. With a heavily beating heart, you stood at the gaping maw of the Whistling Freddy. The slide tube itself was a dark purple, painted with multiple light purple glow paints. Thematically, it was supposed to be a space wormhole. It even had a speaker playing what you would describe as void ambience playing at its entrance. You first," you said after a minute of reconsideration. The robot then pointed at the switchboard.
Understood, Miss Guard. Please only jump in after the light turns green. Otherwise, you risk crashing into me.
The animatronic stepped into the water, holding onto the bar above the slide. And then he let go, shouting "wee" as he went. Patiently you waited for the light to turn green. After about 10 seconds, you then threw yourself into the slide. Wow. The speed, the water rushing beneath you, the wind. It was how you imagined the travel tubes in Futurama must feel like. From in front of you, you could hear the robot still weeing. But then you noticed something terribly was going wrong here. "Moon!" you shouted into the abyss. You could hear a voice echo down, Whistling Freddy. "Yes?" You heard him, thank God. I think I'm gaining on you."
Wait, what?
After another few seconds, you could see his lights in the distance, and then your face first crashed into the robot. The two of you collided, making you roll around in the tube. You hurt your head on the plastic. But after a heart-raising moment of tension, you found yourself secure in his grasp. Your head on his chest, he was holding you tightly. Blushing, you looked up at him.
"I got you, Miss Guard. Don't be afraid."
You didn't know how you ended up in this position, but who cares? It was really nice. You looked down at the tube, and then it made a sharp turn into the transparent section, going straight through the middle of the attraction. Wow. It looked mesmerizing as expected. "This is so cool!" you shouted. After another harsh turn, you were on the final stretch of Whistling Freddy. "I never had so much fun on a water slide before," you shouted.
"Me neither."
You snorted. Oh God, what a dork. Oh no. Oh no, you were starting to have a crush on him. The ride started slowing down a little as it was getting ready to eject the two of you into the water collection basin. And after a loud flopping noise, you're thrown into the shallow pool. The both of you were laughing as you were lying on top of each other. The both of you laughing as you were lying on top of him. It took you a minute of looking at his silly silicone face, and without really wanting it, your body moved on its own. You just started kissing the robot's lips. But what should be more concerning was that he returned it. You exhaled joyfully through your nose. His lips were tasteless. Of course, he was a machine. He didn't eat, nor did he need to brush his teeth. The robot's thick hands wrapped around your back in a comforting way, making you gasp. Gently, Moon rubbed over your wet skin. And then, a long latex appendage entered your mouth. Moon's tongue was less agile than a human one, and definitely way too hard. But it was a very lewdly familiar feeling. Lustfully, you narrowed your eyes, accepting his bold invasion in your mouth. It took the two of you a while, but eventually you separated, as you realized what you were doing.
I'm sorry, Miss Guard,
hushed Moon, embarrassed.
No, it's fine,
you said, reassuring him. You raised your body before fiddling with your wet bra.
It's really fine, Moon.
Thank you to the people who are supporting me on Ko-fi. You guys are keeping me alive.